The CBC, a busybody lawyer, and a couple of out-of-province activists looking for Nazis under every bed are colluding to ruin the reputation of an accomplished lawyer for some conservative-sounding online posts. They're all calling him a racist. The problem? This lawyer is a respected Indigenous man who is fighting on behalf of residential school survivors against the federal government. Today, I'll show you some of those so-called offending posts that were worth forcing this man to walk away from an historic government appointment. This man here is Leighton Grey. I don't know him personally any more than a couple of emails we exchanged over the weekend after I saw what CBC and a handful of activists, along with, of course, the NDP, are doing to him and his reputation. Let me tell you about Leighton Grey. Here is his work bio. Indigenous rights litigator Leighton Grey is a senior partner with the firm Grey Wauch Spencer, LLP, based in Calgary and Cold Lake, Alberta. Leighton focuses on criminal law, child welfare proceedings, personal injury, and other forms of civil litigation. A status Indian, Leighton was the recipient of the Government of Canada Legal Studies for Aboriginal People Scholarship. From 1989 to 1992, a member of the Queen's Council since 2010, Leighton handles criminal law, civil litigation, and child protection cases, serves as an adjudicator in Law Society of Alberta disciplinary hearings, and has been involved in the prosecution of residential school claims. A hockey skills coach and mentor, Leighton is the founder and president of the Lakeland Sports and Learning Academy, a nonprofit organization that creates and delivers athletic programs to youth in Cold Lake and surrounding area. He was a recipient of the Stars of Alberta Volunteer Award in 2013 and the Access to Justice Award for his work with the Legal Aid Society of Alberta in 2015. Now, after some digging, I think Grey's work bio might even be slightly modest. Look at this list of residential schools and hospitals he's looking to currently hold accountable for what they did to Indigenous people in Canada. Now, at the end of April, Grey was also appointed to the Alberta government's committee that vets judicial appointments. On paper, Grey is a role model, a free-thinking, accomplished Indigenous man at the peak of his career, giving back to his community and fighting for justice and accountability for his people, trying to make a real act of systemic historic racism right while helping poor people access the legal system. Perfect. That's the exact guy I want screening judges in Alberta. But there's one problem. Grey might have some conservative tendencies, and worse yet, he's no fan of Black Lives Matter. And so he's being cancelled, run right out of his high-profile and historic appointment. And of course, the CBC is there to make sure it's happening according to the recipe. They're helping bake this outrage cake. Look at this from the CBC. Lawyer who posted Black Lives Matter leftist lie video resigns from Alberta Judicial Vetting Committee. Wait, so you can't hold a government appointment if you disagree with BLM? Says who? I guess the CBC, Toronto-based anti-hate guru Bernie Farber, and lawyer Tom Engel, and a Dalhousie professional racism Karen. Those are the experts cited by CBC in this hit piece. Look at this. A lawyer appointed to a committee tasked with recommending new judges in Alberta has resigned after CBC inquired about his recent comparison of a future COVID-19 vaccine to Auschwitz tattoos and posting of a video that called Black Lives Matter a leftist lie controlled by a Jewish philanthropist. Criminal defense lawyer Leighton Grey's numerous online posts, including opinions that legal and anti-racism experts said should disqualify him from being on the provincial court nominating committee, the PCNC. CBC asked several legal and anti-racist experts to review Grey's social media posts and blogs, including Tom Engel, who chairs the policing committee for the Edmonton-based Criminal Trial Lawyers Association in Alberta. My overall impression is that Mr. Gray is on the outer fringe of the right wing and has just no place on a committee that is in charge of screening, Engel said. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tom Engel is, he was described in 2008 as having more complaints about police than any other lawyer in the province at the time. And more recently, a complaint filed by Engel's daughter-in-law got Staff Sergeant Bill Clark, the guy who caught Mark Twitchell, the Dexter killer, moved off homicide to administrative duties because Clark made a quip about how cops fight with defense lawyers, including Engel by name, in a class where Clark was giving a lecture to law students. Clark was eventually reinstated after his pay was docked and after other law students wrote a letter of support for him. What I'm saying is, Engel has no problem ruining good guys. Anyway, back to that atrocious CBC article. Bernie Farber, chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, said he was, quote, disturbed on the basis of just pure humanity when reviewing Gray's commentaries and posts. Our expectation is that our government will go through a process to pick the people that are most fair, that are most equitable, Farber said. The views posted in Mr. Gray's blog, in my view, are extreme. Isaac Saini, an African-Canadian historian at Dalhousie University, who has reviewed Gray's posts, called them racist and backward. Saini noted that several of Gray's posts referenced the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer, which launched protests for action on systemic racism across North America. Gray disparaged Floyd as sexually promiscuous and disputed the frequency of anti-Black violence. By the way, that video that Gray posted about BLM, well, it wasn't exactly made by white supremacists, but CBC won't tell you that. Just look at this.
All lives matter.
Man, you gotta tell them why all lives matter. Indeed,
No, that should be obvious. All lives do matter. You gotta explain this to people. All lives matter.
And about BLM being hijacked by Soros, well, that's true, and it isn't some sort of anti-Jewish conspiracy theory either. I don't care, and I think neither do most people, that George Soros is Jewish. It's that he irrefutably funds a network of groups that foment division and violence here in North America, including violence of the anti-police kind. The activists and CBC were also mad that Gray wanted to appoint the best people, regardless of gender, to the job. That monster. Seriously, they found this statement controversial. I shall consider it my mission to help select the most qualified candidates, regardless of their race, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, or political affiliation. In short, to pledge to have no regard for identity politics of any kind. Lady Justice does wear a blindfold after all. However, part of the PCNC's mandate, developed, of course, by the former NDP government, is to actually consider diversity when selecting judicial candidates. Not diversity of thought, though, just gender and color, because it's pretty clear there's no conservatives allowed here. Now, there is even more malicious character assassination in this CBC article, if that's even possible. Just look at this. Farber, who has studied hate and radicalization for decades, said the frequency and thoroughness of Gray's posts and blogs suggests the lawyer firmly holds these beliefs, which Farber characterized as racist, anti-Semitic, and extreme. Remember, he said he doesn't believe in identity politics and he wants to hire the best person for the job. But have you ever heard of anything so ridiculous? An anti-Semitic, white supremacist, indigenous lawyer? Gray routinely cited Jewish thinkers like Martin Buber in his postings on his now deleted website, Legal Matters Canada. Gray used to feature quotes from the likes of MLK, Malcolm X, Thomas Sowell, and Albert Einstein. Gray also tells me in the last 2 years he's hired 3 Muslim lawyers for his firm, making his office probably a heck of a lot more diverse than most Alberta BLM rallies and, of course, CBC newsrooms. And if you don't think that this was an absolutely coordinated effort by the CBC and these busybody activists to get a good lawyer turfed because his posts aren't leftist enough, well, CBC admits it in the article. They've been pestering the government to get rid of Gray for weeks, and when the government wouldn't, CBC rounded up some experts to bully Gray into resigning. Look at this. Justice Minister Schweitzer said he was only recently alerted to posts Gray made after his appointment on April 29th. However, CBC identified blog posts written by Gray prior to his appointment and shared those with the minister's office weeks ago. Now, I'm going to give the last word to Gray because he should get to define who and what he is, not the CBC and not his bad faith enemies, he said. I have nothing to do with the alt-right. I'm a libertarian, which means I may disagree with what you say, but would defend to the death your right to say it. I therefore disagree with your criticism of me, but I respect your right to voice it. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. At Rebel News, we tell the other side of the story, the side of the story the CBC clearly doesn't want you to know about people like Leighton Gray. But we'll never take a penny from the government to do it, unlike the CBC, who gets like $1.5 billion of your money per year to tell you these half-truths about decent people. If you'd like to support the work that we do, please go to helprebelnews.com.